Well, the Minnesota Vikings just made a massive move that we have to talk about absolutely right now on this channel. Firing your GM, firing Kwesi is pretty wild considering the timing. He was literally at the Senior Bowl. This is nuts. Let's talk about it. Hit subscribe if you're a Vikings fan or you want anything NFC North related. That's what we're talking about on this channel. Let me know, of course, in the comments how you feel about this decision by the Minnesota Vikings. And for me, more importantly, this timing of the decision too. But I guess that's not true. Timing is important, but I suppose the right decision is the right decision, even if it's delayed, whatever. So let me know in the comments what you think about this move, how you're feeling about it, how you're processing it. I tried to just get a feel out there to see what people were saying, what people are thinking. I think the big question, of course, is why and why now? That's a really interesting question that we definitely have to talk about. And then the follow-up question is, what does this mean for the future of the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming season? What does it mean for the draft? What does it mean for free agency, which is only a few weeks away? We got to get into all of that. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are there. Let's start off with what I think is the most fascinating question in this. Why? And there's a why now there, but why? Like, why would you fire Kwesi now? And what's the main root cause to the firing? There's a lot out there. You could go the draft perspective where I think I heard it was 172 starts, only 172 starts from drafted players from 2022 to 2025. And that is second worst in the NFL. Basically meaning you're the second worst drafters in the NFL, or at least Kwesi, your general manager, your scouting department, you guys did not do a good enough job in the last 4 drafts. Okay, that's the short version. Okay, there's also an argument around free agency, and you have the high highs like 2024, and you have the high lows, or the low lows, I should say, like 2025. So there's that argument there, and then there's this argument, which is gaining a lot of traction right now. It's clear as day that the Vikings front office and Kwesi forced J.J. McCarthy onto Kevin O'Connell. Kevin sounded the alarms, but nobody listened. The front office went even further by playing the comp pick game and not even getting a viable backup. In the end, it cost Kwesi his job. Okay? And then this from Daniel Rotman. Very similar. For what it's worth, there was internal disagreement when drafting J.J. McCarthy and when deciding whether to prioritize him or Sam Darnold this offseason. KOC wanted to go in the other direction. The Vikings were moments away from trading McCarthy to the Raiders this offseason, but to no avail. And then, of course, let me go back. We'll get to that in a second. And then, of course, not everyone loves this guy's opinions, but he's saying some truthful things here, I think. Mike Florio and his take on the situation, here it is.
Nearly 4 weeks after ending the season on a 5-game winning streak, the Minnesota Vikings have made a dramatic change in the organization. They have fired general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. They will be searching for a new GM after the draft. Until then, veteran front office employee Rob Brzezinski will take over the operation with Kevin O'Connell still in place as the head coach. This was rooted in, if not driven by, the ill-fated quarterback decision in 2025. This tells us that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah wanted what they got, J.J. McCarthy with journeyman backups, and that O'Connell was cautioning against it. He was the guy saying this isn't going to work. As they said no to Sam Darnold, no to Daniel Jones, no to Aaron Rodgers, and rode with a guy who just wasn't ready. And now with Sam Darnold heading to the Super Bowl, is it a coincidence that after the Seahawks won the NFC Championship, that's when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was fired? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't, but we know this. After the draft, the Vikings are going to be looking for a new GM, and it's likely, if not certain, that Kevin O'Connell is going to be calling the shots in Minnesota moving forward.
Now, I don't know how that makes some of you, I've seen you guys in the comments, some of you definitely don't like the last thing he just said there about KOC calling all the shots. I'm looking at it from a different perspective, I think. I'm looking at a situation that could be general manager gold if you look at it, right? You've got a great maybe slightly overperforming for personnel defense, but you got a great defense and a great defensive coordinator, which makes that defense as good as it was, obviously, so that can continue to grow. You got a great play caller. You got a great offensive mind. The situation around the coaching staff is pretty solid, so I think for a general manager to come in, that's got to feel good, right, about the situation. But you're right. Who's calling the shots and who there's kind of two ways this can go. And we're going to get into that. I suppose let's get into it now in the next segment. Let me know what you think the main reasoning is. Maybe it's all of these things put together. I suppose it always is a little bit of that. But when we talk about the draft, right, look into some specifics here, and then we'll kind of break down what this means for the Minnesota Vikings, right? So misses on the NFL draft played a large role in this decision. This is from the Daily Norseman. Only one of the 10 picks in Kwesi's first draft became a full-time starter. Only 2 remain with the team. This text is way too small to read. I'm sorry about that. The Vikings have hit on 3 other starters in receiver Jordan Addison. Let's see. Oh, I lost my spot here. Kicker, left guard. Over the past 3 years, quarterback J.J. McCarthy, edge rusher Dallas Turner, defensive tackle Levi Drake Rodriguez, defensive back Jay Ward have all shown flashes too. But the franchise's ownership deemed the standard to be higher. And then when you got the free agency, Adolfo Menza, 44, was unable to replicate the team's 2024 free agent success this season. Minnesota used a bevy of cap space on aging veterans. We'll talk about the cap in just a second. But you know who these guys are: Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, Ryan Kelly, and others. The team also failed to secure Daniel Jones as McCarthy's backup, which now looks like an even worse decision than it did at the time. So there's a lot there around Rodgers, of course. So it's a very, very interesting situation on the why, right? Let's get to the what it means, though. And one more why. Sorry. So here is the projected cap space after the now 8 to 9% growth in total cap space has just been announced by the NFL today, and the Minnesota Vikings are still at a deficit of $40.6 million against the cap. So not an ideal way to start the offseason without a general manager, if you ask me. But all of that, combined is certainly, a factor. What about going forward? I will tell you this. The only thing about this move that I feel really good about is Minnesota means business. And this is either going one of two ways. Either this is a pressure makes diamonds situation, and you've got KOC kind of at the helm and having even more, even more opportunity to impact the team for the better. We know he's a QB whisperer. Like, that's obvious. That's proven. We know he can produce great offensive performances from guys who, didn't exactly produce great performances prior to being in Minnesota. So you'll give him credit for that, right? I don't know about the other side, but the other situation is it could be explosive, right? Pressure either makes diamonds or pressure makes things explode. You're going to get one of the two options here because Kevin O'Connell, according to others, could be getting in a situation where he's going to be on the hot seat, where his seat gets hotter because of this situation, because now you bring in a general manager, and if he's not kind of in charge, or even if he is kind of in charge, if you don't see results very soon, he could be gone. And I don't like that for the Minnesota Vikings. I know not all of you love KOC, and I understand the argument there. They have not won a playoff game in 4 years or whatever, 5 years. I get that argument for sure. However, man, I don't know if you want to go to the well on that. I don't know if you want to start that all over. It feels like a big thing. I think there are big question marks, of course, too, around does this affect how things look for your starting quarterback? Does this affect how things look for your backup quarterback? Does this affect how things look for Naylor or Addison and like these other guys here? The draft plan is going to be fascinating. Obviously, scouting department does a lot of that work. It's not just your GM or whatever. But, you got draft needs at cornerback and safety or secondary, right? You got draft need at center. Like, how are you going to handle those things this offseason now with this added question mark? But I will take the positive out of this, that the Minnesota Vikings mean business. They are not satisfied. The front office is not satisfied with not making the playoffs, and they are not satisfied with not going further in the playoffs. They're not satisfied with all the work that they've done and all the money that they've spent to still be in the position they're in. And the NFC North has been a very difficult division for sure, no doubt about it. But this year, not as difficult, right? Difficult and more difficult in terms of the Chicago Bears really stepping up this year, but less difficult in the sense that all 3 of those teams were beatable teams. All three of them. You know that, obviously, right? Like, so I think in the bright side is for the difficulty of the NFC North division as a whole, for the Minnesota Vikings to go and say, no, we mean business. We're going to take care of business. We're going to do what's right and forget about the timing for a second. We're just going to do it. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks how this shakes out. What starts happening, who gets interviewed, things like that. It's going to be a fascinating next few months, especially for the Minnesota Vikings. And we'll be talking about them here, so make sure you come back. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you watch these Vikings videos. And, I'm looking at all the Bears fans on this channel, all the Lions fans on this channel, and even the Packers fans of this channel. I'm going to need the Vikings fans to step up big and state your claim on this channel, because the Vikings fans are not being heard loud enough. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate it, and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Friday night. The Minnesota Vikings mean business.